Hello and welcome back to some more of the Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolver. Last time we continued the trial for the third case of the game, and today we should hopefully be finishing up the final trial for the third case of the game, the return of the great departed soul. And I gotta be honest, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous about what's to come because they have set the stakes so unbelievably high throughout the entire case. All the things they've been setting up, all the stakes they've been establishing for the defendant, and all the different people that are interacting with Courtney's side and the justice minister and I was about to say Von Karma and Van Zeeks and freaking Kazoo who's back and the history with him and the professor and his brother and just the way it's all going to tie together. They literally said at the end of the last episode that we're about to open up Pandora's box, and I'm extremely worried that my expectations are not going to be met, but I'm gonna remain hopefully optimistic, or cautiously optimistic, I should say. So without further ado, let's keep going. October 24th, 11:53 a.m., the Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Let's do this thing. Not a great way to start the episode. Ah, the Knight Errant himself. Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes? I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. So, do you think he realizes that him being in the gallery and him staying at home is essentially a distinction without a difference in terms of how it affects our lives? Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least. I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. Hey there, buddy. So things aren't going too well.
I have to ask, what on earth is going on? It makes no sense. Well, he doesn't look like any professor I've ever met before. Who even is he?
Of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago.
Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. But who knew the monster that come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies. Ah ha 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 ha! Your life is on the line right now. Let's have a good old chuckle about it. Ha 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 ha!
As it turns out, Lord Van Zeeks is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realize, isn't he?
Yes, how true. His great friend from university in the dock.
And now a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance too. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man.
You make it sound deliberate.
I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling.
Oh yes? In what particular manner?
Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Van Zeeks. It seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow. Yes. In fact, I, alone, am not a member of the set.
We'll see about that.
That leaves me as an empty set, all alone with no intersection to any other.
Who?
Oh, hey, buddy. How you doing, buddy? How's life? So, as it turns out, we're gonna uncover your little scheme here today. How's that sitting with you? Dr. Scythe.
Ah, Dr. Courtney Scythe. Hey, Stevens. Good day to you.
Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you.
What in particular, pray?
You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you?
Why would you assume such a thing?
Because Gregson told me, that little sniveling snitch rat.
Alright, Gregson's out of the loop. He's out of the gossip loop moving forward.
To think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory, wielding my scalpel.
Not a great way to describe what you do. It seems like you sadistically enjoy it, but okay.
I smell of nothing but corpses and disinfectant.
A policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it happens, Dr. Scythe, and I've accused you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened.
That certainly won't be possible. Oh, do tell. Lord Van Zeeks won't be summoning me as a witness.
Uh-huh.
Lord Strongheart has forbidden it.
Lord Strongheart?
The Pandora's box you were warned about is the professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice! I've always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets. None at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you.
Hi, my name is Evil Person. Nice to meet you. She mentioned it too, this Pandora's box.
Whatever does it all mean?
There's really no cause for concern, I assure you. When the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not. Huh? Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery, where I will be just as useless as I would be if I had stayed at home in bed. The edge of my seat awaits.
I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much, given the circumstances.
Ah, yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter whatever may come to pass.
Okay, then. Alright, I understand. Thank you.
Good, I shall make myself scarce, then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, so I shall be gnawing on that as you gnaw away at the truth.
See, my brain is stuck in, like, look for clues mode, so every little insignificant detail I think is gonna have some major implication later. Even though the fact that he's eating caramel probably has nothing to do with literally anything. It's just the fact that they took the time to point that out, and the fact that there was a little image on screen is like, why'd you do that, game? Why'd you make sure I knew that, game? What did that warning from Mr. Sherman's really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. I'm getting nervous. Getting really nervous here. It's time for the final chapter that, well, no, you still have 2 more cases to go. I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what. I will say, this does feel, like, really definitive, right? Like, doesn't this feel like the end? Like, this feels very final. This feels like it could be a final case, with how through the roof the stakes are and how intense everything has been. I mean, it may as well be. Unless I just imagined that there are 2 more cases, and this actually is the final case, which I don't think it is, because we've seen this 2 more. I don't think it's possible. I could be going insane. I could have just imagined that there's actually a case 4 and 5 when there aren't, but I'm fairly sure that's not the case. It just really feels like a final case. October 24th, 12:40 p.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue?
The mission is ready, my lord.
Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready.
As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition, yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sentenced to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectations.
As seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord.
Welcome to Ace Attorney, friends, uncovering the past for very simple cases.
So then,
let us begin our explanation of the defense's assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Van Zieks.
My lord.
Are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Tuspels?
Not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak, and ready to be summoned.
Very well. Bring in the witness.
At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tuspels to the stand.
Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Trevor is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Scythe. And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork. Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present, it's all we have to go on.
Okay then. State your name and occupation for the court, please.
At the moment, it's Creepy McCreeperson who's sculpting a waxwork of... I mean, so on the one hand, it's like, yay, you're creating a waxwork of Airlock Sholmes who doesn't have to stand there like a useless Muppet all day anymore. But also, he kind of was out of our way when he was standing around like a useless Muppet at the Waxworks Museum, so maybe it'd be better for us if he kept doing that and you didn't replace him, but it's whatever.
My name is Madame Esmeralda Tuspels. I'm a waxwork artisan, and the proprietress of the Madame Tuspels Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon.
Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are 2 of them in the world.
Oh my, what expression is she carving onto that face?
For a second I thought she was going to be like,
Oh, it's so beautiful.
but no, it's like,
Oh, what are you doing to my beloved Airlock Sholmes?
A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this?
Oi, that is true. At first, we believed it had been
A waxwork model? Kidnapped?
Yes, my lord. there was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim?
At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odious Man. Or Odious Man, depending on what you prefer.
Of course, I know him well. He's a part of my odious personage.
Really? Part of your odious personages exhibit, huh?
I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Assman does not resemble the professor at all.
Yes, but perhaps! Perhaps their faces are very similar!
Are you suggesting that we should see now the demasked visage of the professor? Shh! I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock.
This is absurd.
Welcome to the party. I see you're late to the club.
Pardon?
I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask. But clearly, it won't be that of the actual killer.
Indeed. This man's identity was never made public after all.
The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a closely guarded national secret. There is no possible way that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hands on that information.
Quel dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the Tuspeller's principles.
What principles?
The family Tuspellers has always prided itself on sculpting its models a la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voila, our principles. There is a well-known legend about the Tuspell's waxworks from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Tuspell's family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that is true. A century ago now, I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death, actually at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still today in the House of Horrors.
It's come by today!
We Tuspels will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects.
Dear me, it's a somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose.
It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations.
Do you mean to say that beneath that mask?
Oui, the true visage of the killer is there.
This is ludicrous. It's out of the question.
The professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tuspel's special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer, emerging from his own grave, is a sight to behold. You should come.
Come by today! Only $8 per person. Bring a third, and that person gets in free or something or other. I don't do commercials. What do I know? I think, madam, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in its creation.
With pleasure.
And so the crazy train is prepping its wheels to leave the station. Whew, the Professor Waxwork.
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with Tuspel's family principles. I enlisted the aid of a grave digger and created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself till they gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered.
Okay, when we asked you for all the details, you gave us approximately diddly-do in terms of details. You gave us like a vague outline of what happened. The gravedigger? The man sanctioned this?
Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew, only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, eh?
So you truly saw it, the face of that monster!
Shh. Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret, but Tuspels would not be Tuspels if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures.
I don't believe this.
I myself have seen the special exhibit at your museum, madam. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave.
The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened, as reported by the eyewitness who saw it.
A newspaper article recounting the tale of an eyewitness to the alleged resurrection of the professor from his grave on the night of his execution. Oh, good Lord Almighty.
Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words. Almost as absurd as rising from the ashes. Like some kind of phoenix.
The public enjoy absurdity, monsieur. How do you think Ace Attorney games are so popular? That is why I have reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum.
And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it?
That is correct. The professor you see before you here.
Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination.
This waxwork links Drebber to Dr. Scythe, and there has to be some reason for that which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Scythe and Drebber were in on this climb together. Hopefully. Okay, so as per usual, no blatant contradictions, so we're just gonna have to keep pressing until something starts to break. So my first thought is to give your signal there for a long time. Vague statements, I require more details, please. You were there longer than you expected to be?
I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open, and I had some problems with the chin.
Dare I ask?
The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing and consequently, his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night, I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time.
What do you mean?
When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait till 3 hours after death.
Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant?
It is because of rigor mortis.
Wriggly mortis. Yeah, that thing that Danganronpa 3 didn't acknowledge when it was talking about the thing in episode 3 with the bodies turning cold, whatever.
It's an ingiven phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then, from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered.
Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one.
As the mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaw.
I see. So that's why you wait.
Just out of curiosity, just for comparison's sake, what is the killer's autopsy? This is not the correct one. The correct one would be over here. Okay. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight. Okay, midnight June 17th. Midnight of June 17th. That's going to be important. That is going to be vitally important because I need to. Okay, so she said she was there longer than she needed to be. I need time. I need a specific time for this because we've been given the time for how long rigor mortis lasts. We need specific information to see if this timestamp matches up properly. Ugh. It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. You're a criminal defense attorney who's known for defending people accused of murder. What did you expect? I wonder if that information... Oh, it's gonna be significant, alright. It is going to be very... Once I get more information out of her, it's gonna be incredibly significant. The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us, would you mind including it in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see.
Of course. I do not mind at all. I can't help feeling that after this latest topic, the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave.
But, Tish. Funny. This is no time for jokes, Mr. Sato.
Madam, kindly amend your testimony as discussed.
Bien sûr.
Okay. Took me a very long time because it was before the onset of rigor mortis. And you also said it was very worried you could be discovered. Why is that? You say that dawn was approaching? What was the time of day then, approximately?
Well, I could not say, but when I left the cemetery with my utensils in wax, the morning light was becoming visible.
The execution took place on June 17th, which had the earliest sunrise of that year. Indeed it did. First I would have been around 4:40 in the morning. 4:40? Didn't you- wait a minute, didn't you say it was 10 hours? It really is early.
The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in half an hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe, so I had to hurry.
Is it me, or does Mr. Sholmes seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too? I wonder, Oh, it's incredibly significant. Madam, those details about how long it took you to complete the sculpture in the early sunrise, could you include them in your testimony? I believe they may be significant.
Of course, if you'd like me to. You're quite right, Mr. Naruhodo. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it?
That's not quite what I meant by significant. Kindly amend your formal testimony, then, madam.
With pleasure, my lord.
Alright, here we go. I hurried to finish my work in the half hour before sunrise, and I left as soon as the corpse was interred. Okay, so you know, I went the wrong way again. So you know how it says that the death by hanging confirmed at midnight, June 17th? And also remember what you told us about the rate of rigor mortis? Yeah, I didn't think so. That last statement would seem to be at odds somehow with the evidence. It is your task, counsel, to explain the somehow to the court, not the other way. What? Really? Really? Are you kidding me? Did you not? She just... Okay. Yeah, fine. I'll roll back through the chat log to see if I got it wrong. Okay, that's... So... It's inconvenient that it's... Okay, so 10 hours for it to be fully inflexible, but didn't you say it was like 2 or 3 hours for it to start setting in? So... That doesn't... Okay, so... The point I'm trying to make here is that the timeline is screwed over, because if we're to believe what she told us, then he's executed at midnight, and then 2 or 3 hours go by, and the muscles start to the rigor mortis starts to set in, right? Okay. But the problem with that is that that's inadequate with the timeline she presented to us, because the sunrise is at 4 a.m. So at that point, his jaw would have been rock solid at that point. There would be no moving it around. Okay. So that's inconsistent with this. We don't have the exact number because we're like one statement too short here. But the point still stands, which is that the timeline isn't adequate with what's been presented, because if we're to believe that he was killed at midnight, then by the time she got around to actually getting the mold for the face or whatever, it would have been too late. It would have already been rock solid, so there would be no part of dealing with the jaw dropping and being relaxed and all that. So why can't I hurry to finish my work in the half hour before sunrise? The half hour before sunrise! Do you want me to try the other one? Let me try the other one. Very long time before the onset of rigor mortis. I'll try it on this one. Maybe this one will work a little bit better. Oh, now it worked. It should have worked for the other one too. Nah. It should have worked for the other one too. If the whole thing was saying in the half hour before sunrise, then that should have also been a contradiction, because it couldn't have. Okay. All right then. Anyway, now that we've pointed this out, what this essentially means is that what Enoch Drebber saw... why do I always pick the worst way to go by doing this? I could have just gone left. What Mr. Drebber saw all those years ago might have actually been what happened, in the sense that he might have actually seen him come out of the grave, because if he was never actually executed when they claim him to be, he might be telling the truth. And I'll tell you what, the easy way to solve the problem: get him on the stand, drag his sorry ass onto the stand, get him on the stand next to Courtney Sive, and then we'll figure out what happened once and for all. I still say that it should have worked, because they both place the time inconsistent with what we know to be true with the autopsy report. So I still say that whether I presented it on that statement or the one before it still should have worked. But fine, whatever. Madame Truspels, I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution to the gallows.
And is that a problem?
I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another.
Queer?
Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend?
According to her testimony, Madame Truspels was creating her wax impression just before dawn, and at that time rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, madam?
You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis.
2 to 3 hours after death. 2 to 3 hours after death, just like I said.
The man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time.
But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Sithe's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, June 17th.
No.
If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would already have set in.
Oi, yes, you are right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff.
In other words, this report is wrong!
Objection. No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death.
Well, maybe it wasn't a mistake then. Maybe it was deliberate. In this case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time!
Impossible!
Now, we're getting somewhere.
Order! Order! Counsel, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate members of staff at Barclay Prison where the execution took place. By heck, extraordinary. Not wrecking money. My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact.
And what fact might that be?
The professor died that night, without question.
He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaw with my own hands. It was
No. Yes, the professor died that night, but what if he didn't die at the gallows?
Didn't die? Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case?
It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and then one other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night.
Counsel, present the evidence at once. The evidence that
Allegedly explains what really happened. That would be this, not that. The 10-year-old article. What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery.
You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now?
Well, if this article is to be believed, then yes. The professor, assumed dead by following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Don't be a fool. That's simply a rumor published by the gutter press.
Can you be certain of that?
Are you serious?
The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened.
My word, yes indeed.
Oui, the young man who strolled into the cemetery by chance that night.
Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself, but obviously the man made it all up. And in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him.
On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well.
What? Are you suggesting, counsel, that you've identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events take place?
Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say that he's here right before my very eyes.
You will substantiate your latest claim now, then, counsel. Who was this alleged witness of the staggering scene from the cemetery 10 years ago?
That would be none other than Mr. Enoch Drebber himself. Get him on the stand, and let's end this case. The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber!
Drebber? The previous witness?
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors of Madame Tussauds Museum of Waxwork recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. Greatly disturbing detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber! Who honestly kind of looks like a character model from the B-movie game, and that's not even a joke.
Order! Surely not, counsel. Drebber was there, in Lowgate Cemetery.
What is all this talk about, Mr. Drebber?
Of course, Madame Tussauds doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, madam, to your situation as well, in fact.
What situation?
The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by this very same man.
No, but that would mean...
Madame Tussauds, it would appear you know the name, Enoch Drebber.
Oh, oui, yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past.
What?
Oh my!
Good gracious! Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know.
Yes, of course. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in a cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I've already shown the court.
You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article?
goodness me. Yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a discipline of science at the University of London, and a resident of its student dorms. Unbelievable!
When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of the night would make a perfect exhibit for my House of Horrors, whether it was true or not.
I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt a waxwork of the man, did you?
Exactamente. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork, and since that time, it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery.
So, that raises some questions about what the hell with his execution and scythe and I have some questions. I have questions. So 10 years ago, a young man appeared to the public about an extraordinary event that he had witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. Also is the question of why he was at the cemetery in the first place, but the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of this executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today, even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Assman, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Scythe, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court had seen earlier. Why?
Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying?
Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive, a criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect, which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double! Ah! Nay, my lord, this court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected.
But according to the missives I've received from this morning throughout the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case?
She told us so herself, didn't she?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of hard to make your case that she can't be summoned when we have inextricable proof now that she is, like, unequivocally, beyond a shadow of a doubt, linked to this case at its core. Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zeeks.
The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped.
But Lord Van Zeeks, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office.
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me.
Yes.
Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together, and let's blow this case wide open.
Order. Very well. I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect, addressed to Dr. Scythe of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders. Alright then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away, I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out! Okay, here we go. This is it, the final showdown. It's case 3, by the way, but it feels like case 5.
Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Scythe.
I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zeeks.
Yeah, well, let's let that going around recently.
You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office, said the woman who falsified an autopsy report, potentially twice.
Betrayal is not in my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt.
I gotta say, it's kind of growing on me.
I mean, it took 8 cases. Well, I guess maybe that's not fair because he wasn't in the first case of the first game or the second case of the first game. But you know what I mean? It took a game and a half at this point. But you know, it's slowly growing on me. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime.
And where's your evidence?
At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago.
You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes. Oh, did you now? Oh, did you now?
That remains to be seen.
Is that so?
Yes, because according to newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life.
Don't waste my time. The Walking Dead hasn't even been invented yet in this timeline.
And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction but reality, it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Scythe's. A secret so profound, it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery.
So he was a student who saw it? You can see the resemblance, actually, can't you? With the man in Mountain Festivals, I mean. Surely he's not going to claim that that's really what he saw, especially not after all these years. He was a research student at the University of London, was he?
Run out of time, buddy. All eyes are on you. The floor is yours.
What an interesting twist. When, at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now here we are, 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters, and in a court of law, too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes, let's be frank, I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth.
Yeah, running scared now, aren't you, buddy? Don't worry. Just a few short presses and one little presentation of evidence, and you two are going down. So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery.
Yes, of course, as you wish.
Alright. Lay it on me, Cyborg Man. Show me what you got. In the cemetery 10 years earlier.
The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say? Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor.
What?
Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article.
Wait, slow down, hang on, slow the hell down. What are you talking about? What do you mean you didn't actually see the professor? Literally, what are you talking about? Wait a minute, you're claiming that you didn't actually see the professor now?
Of course. You'd have to have a screw loose if you believed a corpse could come back from the dead.
Well, you could if you could believe it if the corpse was never dead in the first place. But so you're saying that this article is
not worth the paper it's printed on? I think that would describe it perfectly, yes. If the details in the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe would have been working together.
So he's just discrediting himself to cripple my argument? Tell me, witness. Wait. Who's that signature? I didn't actually look at this before. Oh, that would have been nice to know. Oh, that would have been real nice to know. Okay, so you can move up and down to switch. Did you always do that? Could you do that in the original trilogy? I don't know if you could, I didn't know. But that's extremely useful. That's very helpful. Anyway. Huh. Interesting. So he was there that night. So the Ass Man was there in the graveyard. No one's mentioned that, but the Ass Man was there that night. He had to have been because he's the one who either took this picture. Or I'm guessing it's meant to be a drawing. But whether it was a drawing or a picture, he was either the one who took the picture or he was the one there who drew the illustration of this event. So he was there. He knows what happened. And there's the motive. There's the motive right there. There's our missing motive. Because they say, oh, you have the contract. I said to move over to the contract, please. Oh, we have the contract which says that if he dies, then it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter even one single bit. Because he's the only one. He's the only other living person who can tear his life to shreds. Who can prove that he actually saw what he claims to have seen, despite the fact that he's now claiming that he doesn't claim to have seen it. Because the fact that he saw this... Excuse me. I'm dying. Send help. My apologies. His life was thrown into chaos because of this. No one believed him. It was flipped upside down. So he wanted, the motive had nothing at all to do with the contract. He just wanted to get rid of the one person who could prove that he actually saw the professor come out of the grave that night, when all he wanted to do was slink into the shadows and let Courtney Side get away with whatever the hell she was up to with this professor. But it didn't work, because the one loose end, the one newspaper, the one piece of evidence or the one person who could inextricably link him to what happened in the graveyard is the one person who ended up dying in this case. And there's our link. I don't know how the hell I didn't see that before. Because I saw it. I knew there was a signature there. I just didn't think about it. I'm like, okay, the signature there is whatever. But then I actually stopped to think like, wait, there's a signature there. Whose signature was that? Who drew this thing? Or who took the picture? And then I saw it, and then all the pieces kept falling into place. Okay, there's our missing motive. You wanted a motive? Well, there you go, buddy. There's your motive. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate? I am a robot. That's right. Grave robbing, to be precise. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So among students at the university, it has a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead.
So, you were one of the so-called resurrectionists, a particularly unpleasant scourge on society.
Actually, my fellows and I went by another name, the Repurposers.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches, and in the end, I had to... Yeah, sure, give me more motive. Yeah, go ahead, bring it on, buddy. Go ahead, keep giving me... Because I already had enough motive with just the fact that no one believed you, and he was the only person who was like, hey... He's already thinking he's like, shut up! I want to keep this a secret so that Courtney Side doesn't get in trouble for lying about the execution. Shut up! I already had enough motive, but sure, give me more. Give me more motive. Give me the fact that you had to leave your university because of what happened. Sure, just keep piling on the motive here, buddy. Just keep adding layers to the motive cake. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add.
I see.
Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article?
Yes. That was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I barely regretted what I had done, claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish, very foolish.
Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now.
At once, my lord. Okay, we're slowly chipping away the ice. We're getting to the core of it, slowly by slowly, bit by bit, little by little. Okay, so if we can actually think back to the testimony we have to cross-examine, I'm gonna need you to give me some more information here. You were visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax, and I mean we can assume who that is, but tell me more about your encounter with her. So let's see if we can bait her into being like, huh? Like if he describes her encounter, she might perk up and be like, hey, that's not right. So we're gonna try that on for size. See if that works. That young woman being Madame Tussauds, of course.
Precisely, I must say, I didn't expect to run into her again like this 10 years later. As I have explained, I went by the name published in the article and... Kamika, I found the man.
Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said.
I was a poor student with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me.
So you readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made and gave permission for it to be on display.
I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded.
Ah, oui. I remember now. I purchased something else from you that day, n'est-ce pas?
Did you? I can't say I remember.
What was it, madam? Let me guess, the camera. Yeah, I was about to say, the only thing that makes sense to me was the camera, because the camera's on display. Which, by the way, if the camera's on, if that's the, wait, so if that's the actual camera on display, then there's probably some, ooh, okay. There's probably some evidence in the camera itself that we can use if that's the case. Ah.
Oh yes, I made a point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion into any cemetery.
You took a camera with you, sir?
To what end? To record the details of the bodies I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting the graveyard again after that night, so I sold it.
I see.
But I still have it, monsieur. It is a part of the special exhibit in my House of Horrors. I am very meticulous about such details. It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him to Logate Cemetery on the night in question.
Yes, interesting. Details of the camera have been updated in the court record. Okay. Well, before we go any further, let me just make sure. I did the thing again. God damn it! I said before we go any further. Thanks, game, but it's fine. I accidentally pressed the button, so now we got to skip through it again. Okay, so what I was trying to say is, if we can open this up, can I actually check the camera, please? Where's the? Oh wait, to be close to the. No, it would be back here. It would be back here. Check the camera. Okay. Is there anything here that we can examine as evidence? If we open it up. Oh. Well, there you go. Big ass bloodstain on the side of it. Jesus.
You really love contraptions like this, don't you?
Oh, yes! Anything mechanical at all.
Almost irresistible, surely.
Well, whenever I see a pocket watch, for example, I can't help myself. I simply have to take it apart.
That's worrying.
Yes. Father tells the time by the rumblings of his stomach now. He's given up having a watch.
Poor Professor Mikutaba. How many watches did he go through? Actually, no, not poor Professor Mikutaba. He abandoned his daughter as she was born and left her there for years. He abandoned his daughter and left her there all by her. Well, not by herself. She was with her grandma, but you know what I mean. His daughter was born to, and he was just like, nah, I'm gonna go yeet off into a different dimension. See you later. So no, not poor Professor Mikutaba. He deserved everything that was coming to him. Anyway, bloodstain.
Look, Mr. Naruhodo.
What is it?
On the belges here, there seem to be some very dark red stains.
Yes, you're right. Looks like blood, actually.
Oh my!
I'm sure it's not what you're thinking. Ha ha ha. Okay. Well, I mean, I get that links. That should link his presence there. Although, well, I mean, we can assume that it would, because I don't know why else it'd be a blitz in the inside of the camera. But also, why? Because as far as we know, he just saw the blood come up out of the. I don't know why there would be a thing there, but okay. Well, anyway, thinking back now, I realize I never actually saw the professor at all, though. Well, I mean, okay, so I feel like we can just show our hand. I was waiting to show our hand, but I feel like we can just show our hand now, right? With the article, because like we know you must have seen it. You're depicted here by Odie Assman, and it gives you the perfect motive that you claim you didn't have. So, is this what you want me to do?
Objection.
Yes, it is. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that.
Don't believe what?
Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night 10 years ago.
Oh dear, we seem to be at odds, but I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see.
The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb, wearing an iron mask. The world's first Iron Man.
Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago, it was decided in the closed court rulings that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial. Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face, but obviously the provision of this mask was not public knowledge.
So, Mr. Drebber, as you've just heard, a lowly student of the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask, so unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration.
Order, order. Well, Mr. Drebber.
Must you spin your cogs every time? It's a vile scene, isn't it? If you look closely. And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had it in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards, I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken.
You're still saying you didn't see it?
If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you.
Of course. Only too happy to oblige.
I can't believe he's still not going to concede the point. He's certainly a stubborn little cyborg, that's for sure. What I in fact witnessed was a fellow grave robber at work. I'm guessing he's gonna probably try to say, well, no, he doesn't. Well, I mean, so let's see what he says. I don't know if he want to link it to Assman or not. A fellow grave robber. What are you talking about?
Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole he'd dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see.
You're claiming it was just another student on equally insalubrious business as yourself?
Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissection.
When speaking of overkill, metal mask for a dissection. Yeah, no.
Clearly, the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity, wouldn't you say?
No, but there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, in the next second, a gunshot rang outside. A gunshot? Wait, when did that? Wait. Am I just blind? In this article recounting the tale of an eyewitness to the alleged resurrection of Professor Graven is, where does it say, am I just blind as a bat? Where does it say that? I think you just invented that. I'm sure, look, I'm sure it might say it in the text over. Oh, it does, yeah, right, it does say that, a gunshot ring. Okay, fine. So it does say that in the text, but it also is in, like, font size 0.8, so I'm not gonna beat myself up for missing that detail, okay. The next second, a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind, but the bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest. Well, okay, well, in that case, also, there's your blood stain on the camera. We might assume that a sexton has discovered the miscreants at work, perhaps, and fired upon one of them. If a gravedigger had shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might have been rather big news, my lord. Ah, yes, well...
I can only assume it was an embellishment bolted on later by the report.
Oh, wait a minute, let me guess. What you just heard doesn't line up with what he told you before? Madame Tuspels. Don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes. I mean, you can if you want to. It's no qualms for me.
Ooh la la, pardon. I was lost in my thoughts.
Would it be fair to say that Mr. Trevor's last remark was significant to you in some way?
I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this now. If you don't mind me saying, madam, what are you talking about?
You know she's gonna expose you.
Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gunshots.
Stop.
You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Oh?
Have a care, Trevor. That's no way to speak to a lady.
Van Zeke's coming out of left field? Okay. Van Zeke standing up for a lady. Not on my bingo card. Gotta be honest. Defending talking down to a woman. Not on my bingo card for things Van Zeeks would ever do. Gotta be honest. I did not see that coming. Please, Madame Tuspels, carry on.
Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him and the bullet had hit the condemned man.
I said nothing of the sort.
No, you were very explicit about the details, about the mask that the figure was wearing. And the blood that splattered over you when he was shot, and wouldn't you know it, we have a camera full of blood.
Enough. Shut up, woman. You're making all this up.
That will do. Mr. Drebber.
Yes?
You refute the account just given by Madame Tuspels?
I have no recollection of ever saying those things.
Come on, do you really expect us to believe you?
Control yourself, counsel. I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom.
Right.
Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this witness. Go ahead. Say it. Say it. Say you were never there. Say blood never splat on you. Say something. Say anything. Go ahead. Say it. I dare you. I double dog dare you to say it. There was no gunshot from behind me, nor any splattering blood. And that's where you're done. Nah, you screwed up, buddy. You're done. You're done. It's over. And objection! It's over. Game over. You're done. Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera?
But... Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber. And is that supposed to be significant? This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed that the lens extends forward on the end of some bellows. Like this.
What's that? There. Just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain.
That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact.
Good lord. Are you suggesting...
Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a spatter of blood. Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Scythe? Who's been surprisingly quiet, or conspicuously quiet this entire time.
It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood or not the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough.
I propose that Madame Tusbell's testimony was correct, and that on the night in question 10 years ago, something about getting splattered with blood. Well, and that furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. Yeah, your buddy's not going to save you now. I know you're really counting on Drebber being able to bail you out here, Dr. Scythe, but it's not going to work. He's crumbling to pieces. There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night.
But why? Why would he want to do that?
Well, not for his own gain, it would seem.
For whose then?
Obviously Dr. Scythe, because she would be the one who concealed, who covered up a false execution. She's obviously trying to protect her. Mr. Drebber is obviously lying in order to protect somebody.
My goodness, he's shielding someone?
Yeah, I wonder who. Yes, my lord, and clearly, it's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor's coming back to life to be exposed.
Well, counsel, who is it then? Who is this witness trying to protect?
Obviously, he's trying to protect Dr. Courtney Scythe. The obvious answer is Dr. Scythe.
Scythe? What? Whatever do you mean?
Now we got your attention. Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not, in fact, killed. Imagine if that was to come to light.
What are you insinuating?
And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor.
That would be an unprecedented scandal.
This is beyond a joke. Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life? Well, if they weren't already dead, what does suggesting would mean that the time the execution never actually happened? Now you're catching on. Welcome to the conversation. That's exactly what it would mean.
Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape, not in Great Britain.
If you had the help of the head coroner, that might be of assistance. But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging.
If that were really true, counsel, the implications of misconduct would not stop at the supervising coroner. It would taint the honor of the entire judiciary, from the ground up.
I don't care. Whoever's involved in it, I don't really care if they're pissed at me. I'm exposing the truth. It is exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Scythe would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that meant being complicit in a crime.
You mean...
I mean that Dr. Scythe wasn't collaborating Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Aspen with the waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report. We almost got you now. Why is Kazuma here? Why are you... Oh, great, the leg again. Why... I don't get it. Why is Kazuma of all days? Why is he here? Lord Van Zeeks.
Pray forgive my freshly filled hallowed chalice, and a whole raft of other discourtesies now. Goodness me. It's just the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover-up, a conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing.
What's that?
If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night only to be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger? And disposed of him forever?
Ooh, me. Pick me.
We have too little information to work that out at present. I don't know about that one. We know there was at least one other person there, and we know who it was that was there. So, I couldn't agree more.
The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies,
said the man who implicated that an instantaneous kinesis machine worked only a couple days ago.
And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend?
Considered what?
Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary.
Well, I mean, if he has her backed into a corner, there's really much she can do.
Quite. Hard to imagine any sum of money being offered for research could warrant it. To rely on some stage deception when so much is at stake would be madness.
Well, I suppose...
And this was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money in the venture, and would be instrumental in future profits too.
Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Asman at all. That's a lie, and I can prove it. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me receiving not a single penny? It doesn't really matter if you get money or not, because you already have a much better motive for that. The fact that your life was thrown into chaos because of that man, and he's the only living person who was able to report to the Daily Circus, that was able to report the fact that you actually saw what you claim you didn't see. The court is already aware of the contract, but yeah, forget about it. I don't care about the contract. Well, I mean, I guess I do because it matches the signature exactly, but aside from that, I don't care about it. There is the contract, that's very true. The motive for this cause runs deep, though. I can feel it. Using threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme. Especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place. If the research grant was the aim, then taking Mr. Asman's life would have made no sense anyway. Which means, Mr. Drever's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asman. But why? What was his motive then?
Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your heated proposal, shall we? How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country?
At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this alleged conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence.
Alright, who exactly was Mr. Asman to Drever? There's a connection there that no one's seen yet, and I'm going to have to present 2 pieces of evidence to show what it is. Okay? I'll show the contract with the signature, and I'll show the newspaper article that has the signature on it as well. Yes, my lord? The evidence that establishes the motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here! Take that! Mr. Drever, I have here the contract that you signed with Mr. Asman.
Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man. No, I'm afraid not. As it turns out, this contract actually helps to establish the real motive for the murder you committed.
It does? Well, I never.
What are you talking about? Read it again, you idiot.
Ivan, I'm not finished. In order to demonstrate what your motive really was, I need this contract, and one other piece of evidence.
What other evidence?
Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence, which when cross-referenced with the contract, establishes a motive for the deed.
Take that! It's this newspaper article, my lord.
That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us?
Oh, you'll see. Typical gutter press nonsense that means nothing. How interesting that you tell me that right now, buddy. How interesting.
But there's something significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common.
Really?
And it's that common link that shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Odi Asman.
It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed. So, my learned friend, point out what these 2 pieces of evidence have in common.
Where exactly is the link between the newspaper article and the contract? It would be right over here. Take that! What these 2 pieces of evidence have in common is a signature.
A A signature?
The signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person!
What?
As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Assman's signature at the bottom.
Let me see. Good lord, yes, they're identical.
In short, the journalist who drew the illustration, which, by the way, it's a bit of a stretch on that one because, like, no matter how consistent you are, due to the nature of human beings, your signature will be slightly different each time you do it. Like, slight imperfections to make them, like, the slight imperfections will make it such that they're not exactly the same, but it's still immediately, they're still close enough to be immediately recognizable, so it's just something we're pointing out, but it's not, like, a big thing. It's just something I felt like sharing. Anyway, what's the victim in this case? Mr. Odie Assman! Alright, great. One's down, now we just gotta get Dr. Scythe. Hey, Dr. Scythe! Your buddy's down. He's out. He's not gonna protect you anymore, so why don't you start talking?
But explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Assman?
Well, if you think back, you remember that Mr. Drebber talked about that article in his testimony.
Yeah, we already heard about all this.
We already heard about all this. Oh, doing it again? Yep, I know. Trust me, I know. I know. At the time, you were a student of a university of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life.
So Mr. Assman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he?
He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Assman managed to position himself at the heart of this criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter.
So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article. Written by Mr. Assman! Enough! Oh, did we finally touch a nerve? Stop this endless drivel about my life.
What? Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber.
Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. What do you mean? Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research. But they struggled on with their hypotheses anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some wretch or other, after all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you win a trophy? Did you not win a trophy for excellence? A very prestigious award for a young scientist, so no. You were not on the brink of being kicked out. You were not on the brink of being kicked out of the university. No. Lies, slander, and bullshit. Mr. Drebber, we have receipts proving that you did actually have a chance of becoming something great. Please stop lying. Do you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me? How about the people who found the trophy that you seem to have conveniently forgotten about? I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all. How dare you? And I have evidence to prove it. How are you in a position to say anything about me? Because we examined your room, dingus. We found the scientific trophy, which is listed as a very prestigious award for a young scientist such as yourself. So no, you were not at risk of being kicked out. You were on a fast track to excellence. And it was all thrown away by Mr. Assman, giving you the perfect motive. Take that! Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found it at your workshop.
Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science?
What exactly is this trophy, Counsel?
It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord.
There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future.
Good gracious.
Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Assman was, but when it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life, it's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man! The truth is... Yes, finally he's going to fold. Come on. No, don't double down. Oh. Who? Ah. Oh, look who's finally gonna speak.
Fine. Clearly this has run its course now.
What? Basically, she's saying she's sick of letting you try to defend her for her, so now she's gonna do it all herself. Oh, or that's gonna happen? Okay. Okay. That was also not on my bingo card for today. Really? That, just like that?
It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim, on the condition that he kept my dirty secret from 10 years ago.
No. Good lord! I didn't think it'd be that easy. Dr. Scythe, do you realize what you're saying?
It's all true. That day.
Did not see this one coming.
When I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket.
Oh?
Dr. Scythe, you will go along with my plan? From someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night 10 years ago? All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary.
What did you do? I mean, I can guess what you did. I mean, we know for sure that you fabricated the execution, but why? What happened next? When did it, how did you, why did...
I can only apologize now.
What is happening anymore? Like, we kind of already knew all this. We didn't learn anything new just now. What I want to know about now is what the hell you did 10 years ago. Why under the buckle now? Because you got tired of watching you fumble over yourself for the past hour and a half or however long it's been. Maybe I guess we're a little closer to an hour than an hour and a half.
Well, there's no point in trying to hide anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborated in a murder, but the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished.
So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplices admitted everything. Surely it goes without saying. You admit your part in it too, then? Or not? I admit nothing. Ugh. What? Okay, really? Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting to a crime? There's really no possible way for you to prove that I did anything wrong. Okay, well then why don't we okay. Well, if that's the case, well, no, that's, okay. We can get you easily. We can get you easily, right? Because all we have to do is just, okay. So, if we can't get you on the machine, then we just get you on the actual swapping of the wax bodies, right? That's what we have to get you on. There's surely going to be some detail in there that we can get you to slip up on, like, I don't know, the different wounds. There's just testify about the individual about the waxwork, and we'll see if we can get you to slip up. There's got to be something. That's our only chance right now, is to get you to testify about that. It's the only thing we haven't fully explored, that there's got to be, that we still have some evidence that we can use in that field to prove. There's got to be something there. Order, order, order.
Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secrets if I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zeeks?
Yes?
I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course.
I've heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court. This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrain.
Very true, it had slipped my mind. Isn't he one of your closest friends?
As the court has heard, Dr. Sides has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt.
You mean...
At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection?
None, my lord.
Well, no, because... Oh, congratulations, Mr. This is not a... No, this is not a congratulations moment. He's gonna get away! No, don't do your fist pump thing. No, we're not done here. We're not letting him get away with this. What do you... No.
Without further ado,
No. Don't you dare. Don't you dare pull a case 3 from the first game again. Don't you dare do what you did in the first game and go, oh, find out in the 5th case, woo, and then dance off the stage. No, we are solving this right here, right now. Get your ass back on that witness stand, and we're gonna draw the truth out of you, whatever the hell it takes. No. I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. You're damn right it doesn't feel right. Why did Dr. Scythe suddenly admit to it like that? Is everything alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Like you said before, the way the trial's set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. But is that really what we want? What the defense should be pushing for now is further testimony, obviously.
Objection.
The defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord.
I beg your pardon?
We demand one final testimony! What? Yeah, I know. It's a day full of surprises, but we have more to do. We still got more work to do.
You do realize I'm about to adjudicate in favor of your client, I presume?
What are you playing at now, my Nipponese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of this trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that.
Yeah, well, in the world of Ace Attorney, anything's possible. Mr. Naruhodo, what exactly are you thinking? The truth. The whole truth. And a way to bring it all out into the open. Right! Yes, in hindsight. Yeah, I know what he said. I know what he said. I remember. I got it. I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. He must have deduced that this would happen. I don't know how the hell that happened, but okay. I'm here in court to advocate for my client and to secure an acquittal.
Obviously.
But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty to the court to pursue the whole truth of this case until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Scythe. Testimony from me? About what? About the waxwork. About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber. Ha! In case it's escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. Nope, not everything. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time. What? As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point protracting this business further with another tedious cross-examination. And if that were true, you would have no objection to it. If you truly believed it was meaningless, then you'd be like, sure, cross-examine me all you want, I don't care. But you still have something to hide. You know damn well that if we get you back on that stand and we cross-examine you one more time, then you are going down and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Pray forgive my careless handling of that hallowed bottle.
I slipped. Again. That's what you call it?
What is your objection, Lord Van Zeeks?
The prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness.
Don't be stupid.
If there is more to this case that has yet to come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end.
You're what? Lord Van Zeeks?
This is most irregular, to say the least. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I would uphold the request. Dr. Scythe, you will testify for the court, explaining the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber.
Very well. Quick recovery. I admit, she's a respectable foe. She's quick on her feet, she's quick to recover, and she's clearly very competent. A truly respectable foe, if I do say so myself. But,
You're still going down. It all began at the scene when I saw the waxwork and the note tucked inside its jacket. The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job. And what exactly are those certain ways, Dr. Scythe? What exactly are those certain ways? I enlisted the help of the entire forensic investigation team to dress the scene appropriately. The truth about the execution 10 years ago is a state secret of the highest level. I had to protect it.
Just to make sure I have this straight in my head, I'm gonna look at this one last time. Okay. Stab wound right there. Glass is there. Glass all over there. Okay. Got it all straightened out. Just want to make sure I don't want there to be any slip-ups, no tricks, no pulling wool over the eyes. I want to make sure this is fresh in my head, so I know exactly what I'm up against here. So I was right. The stage and the machine were all specifically designed for this deception.
So it seems, and all meticulously prepared. You did well to see through it. You're a very shrewd boy.
So kind of you to say.
And what about this autopsy report then? All I did was record the location of the body as being in the Crystal Tower instead of under the stage. That's all? That's a terrible corruption! Only my team were aware of the deceit, and then only under my explicit instructions. Nobody else at Scotland Yard knew anything about it, I assure you.
Must be thankful for small mercies, I suppose. Well, I believe that testimony has clarified everything.
Has it now? No, I disagree. I can't take the feeling that something's wrong. Just look at that expression on Dr. Scythe's face. She was literally born to be evil. It's the defense's right to cross-examine any witness following testimony.
What is it about you Japanese that makes you all so doggedly persistent?
Very well. If you so desire, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination.
Yes, my lord. With pleasure. Alright. Here goes nothing, friends. The waxwork blot. So, first things first. In what certain ways did you arrange the body? When you say arranged, I presume you mean with this?
Yes. Instructions in the engineer's notes said something along the lines of... fabricate some evidence to make it clear that Hairbrain alone could have killed Assman.
So you mean that was your doing?
I fetched Hairbrain's ridiculous screwdriver from the stage, and took it with me, alone, to the abyss under the stage where the birdcage had fallen.
Alone, Doctor?
I didn't feel it would be appropriate to involve anybody else in that particular part of the deception. Oh, didn't you now? Oh, didn't you now? There was a void under the stage where I found the birdcage lying in the dirt. I approached it, leaned down, and slowly opened it up. Then, I took the screwdriver in both hands and plunged it into the man's chest.
And then you noted that in your fake autopsy report as a fictitious cause of death.
Exactly.
So, the actual cause of death was?
The trauma resulting from the 30-foot drop.
I don't know about that one there, Chief. I mean, obviously you wouldn't be in a very great condition upon falling that, but I feel like, depending on how well cushioned the cage is, you might survive that. I don't know. I feel like it'd be more indicative. I feel like it's more likely that he was actually stabbed.
My word.
Especially since she's the one who wields like 500 scalpels or whatever bullshit it was, like the insane amount of scalpels she purchased. I think it's more likely that she's the one who. Okay, so what is? So, okay, so she would have had to go there. She would have had to walk. I mean, she says she stabbed the person. Okay, so she walked into the void by herself. She saw the cage on its side, which makes sense. That's how it would have landed. She stabs the victim, which obviously is what. Like I'm guessing that's what killed her. Like they're gonna say it's like, oh, it's the job that killed. It's like, no, you stabbed him. I think he probably survived. But okay, so it would. Okay, so she can't teleport down there, right? So there would have been a period of time between when he fell and when she got down, because she can't just teleport, right? So I'm guessing, because again, I don't think he would have survived I'm guessing he survived the fall. I don't think that would have been enough, especially since she stabbed. But that would mean that he wouldn't have sat there in the cage. He would have been stood upright. Wait! Oh! That's exactly what it is! That's exactly what it is! Okay! He was standing upright! He was standing upright! Yes! Oh my god! How the hell did I... That's not the stupid... No, wrong. How the hell did I not see this? Oh my god, that is such a smart detail. It's such a tiny, little, insignificant, minute detail. But I don't know how I didn't notice it. Okay, so, if the way this is presented to us, it wants us to believe that he was stabbed in the chest, and the blood was dripping downward. The problem with that is that for blood to drip downward, gravity needs to be at play here. And if he's lying flat and it's a completely level surface, the blood wouldn't be dripping downward. But if he were standing upright, meaning the fall didn't kill him and he was still alive, he got out of the cage, Professor Courtney's scythe went down there and stabbed him in the chest, not lying down, which explains why the blood would have dripped down the way it is. However, your question might be, okay, so where's the motive? And I mean, so I imagine it's probably the same as Drebber, right? Because he wouldn't have only been blackmailing, or I guess he wasn't technically blackmailing Drebber, but he was like he has information that would have implicated both Drebber and Courtney. So seems like a pretty big thing. But I guess I can't really prove that because there's nothing explicit that would prove that he was being blackmailed. Wait! Oh no! Maybe there is! Oh, you sneaky little shits! The scalpels, the 500 scalpels. It's an insane thing for any reasonable human being, even if you're a coroner, to own 500 scalpels and constantly keep buying them in. Unless you're using it as a front to conceal where that money is actually being sent. And in that case, suddenly the blackmail looks a lot more realistic, doesn't it? That's it. That's what it is. That's how it happened. That's where it happened. That's when it happened. That's what happened. And that is the why it happened and why and the motive that you would have needed for this whole thing to happen in the first place. And that is the missing link. There it is. Oh, now we got you. We got you now, buddy. What is it, Miss Usato?
Something about Dr. Sai's last statement. It's playing on my mind, that's all. Yes, mine too.
Dr. Scythe?
There's really no need to shout. I can hear you perfectly well.
I mean, you are pretty far away in this courtroom. I don't know. The defense calls for you to add what you just said to your former testimony.
Oh? Which part?
What I want to supplement your testimony with is what you did to the victims. Tell me exactly what you did to that victim, and I'll expose you for all you're worth. How you stabbed Mr. Aspen in the chest. That part.
Fine, if that's what you want. But there's really no need to point.
You don't know what game you're in, then.
The prosecution concurs,
he said, pointing, just to rub it in a little bit.
Very well. You'll submit your testimony now, witness.
This is it. End of the line, Scythe. It's the end of the line for you. I stood over the victim's corpse when it lay in the toppled cage and plunged the screwdriver into his chest. But that's obviously not true, because if it was, then the blood splatter would not have dripped down his chest.
Objection.
I've got a nasty feeling that this inconsistency points to an extremely uncomfortable truth.
What on earth is the matter, counsel? Have you lost your tongue?
I apologize, my lord. Dr. Scythe, and that last statement of yours is just one point that seems to defy explanation.
Out with it, my learned friend.
There's an obvious inconsistency between your description and this photograph, which shows the victim in the birdcage following the events that led to his death.
The court has already examined that photograph in depth. There is nothing new we can glean from it,
And that's where you're wrong. You never know until you try. Yes, we've already considered it, that's true. But we now know the facts to be different.
What do you mean?
I believe we should let the defense explain. Where in this photograph would we see the alleged inconsistency with the witness's statement?
You will see it right... do you want me to point to the trail of the bloodstain itself? Because I'm gonna go middle ground right here. This should work, right? Hopefully, maybe. Look closely at the bloodstain on the victim's chest. It clearly extends in a downwards direction towards the man's feet.
And why is that significant, counsel? If the victim was stabbed moments before the kinesis machine was set in motion, that's entirely Ah! Of course! No, that's not what happened!
Exactly, my lord. Dr. Scythe made it very clear in her testimony just now that the point at which she stole Professor Harebrain's screwdriver and stabbed the victim was after the grand deception was set in motion, when the birdcage had fallen below the stage and out of sight. From the shape of it, it's clear that the birdcage would have fallen on its side after the 30-foot drop, and if the victim had really been stabbed whilst inside that birdcage in the position, the blood from the wound would have spread out equally in all directions. For it to have formed the longitudinal appearance we see in the picture is inconceivable! Haha, now we gotcha. Given that the victim's blood seeped vertically downwards from the wound, it must be the case that when you stabbed Mr. Assman, he was standing up. In short, Dr. Scythe, your latest testimony was a total fabrication! But you know, what else is new? And here's the prosumers you get to hear once every 3 millennia. I knew it. I was right. Now I've identified that contradiction. There's only one way to explain the facts. We've all been under a great misapprehension here.
What? What sort of misapprehension?
Dr. Scythe, you claim you were coerced into helping Mr. Drebber as a result of the note he left in the waxwork. You claim that you made changes to the scene of the crime to implicate the defendant, and you claim that you altered a fake autopsy report to cover your tracks. But one of those claims is an out-and-out lie, because the question of what the blood stain really tells us is only one possible answer!
If that is the case, then what is it, man?
Counsel, you've clearly struck upon a revelation. Now tell the court what it is. Which part of Dr. Scythe's story is shown to be a lie by the contradiction of her testimony?
Stabbing the victim. She did it of her own volition, because he would have been standing up. The answer is very simple if you consider the sequence of events. If, when the victim was stabbed, the blood from the wound seeped downward as it did, we can be sure the victim must have been either sitting or standing upright at the time.
But as you rightly pointed out, the birdcage would have been thrown on its side when it fell beneath the stage.
Yes, it would, which tells us the victim must have been in the position of his own accord.
That's impossible. The man was dead, remember?
No! That is the misapprehension! When the birdcage fell from the stage into the void below, it must have hit the ground with considerable force. But Mr. Assman didn't die in the fall. He probably lost consciousness for a while, but when he came around, he got to his feet to climb out of the cage. Just as Dr. Scythe appeared. If the victim was in fact alive at that point in time, it changes everything. You know, if you played those little 3D cutscenes, and then you played footage from the first game, it is just amazing to see how far the series can come. In the two decades that this series has been around, it is. And I've consumed all these games in the period of like the past 2 years, and it's just amazing to see how they've grown over the past 2 decades. Ah. Mr. Odious Man's killer wasn't the defendant, Professor Albert Harebrain, nor was it the mastermind behind the stage trickery, Mr. Enoch Drebber. It was you, Dr. Courtney Scythe! Oh, I guess Manifest also just disappeared from the scene. Okay, bye, see you later, nice knowing you.
Order! Can this possibly be true?
Have you been taking me for a fool?
Yes.
It was you, was it? You killed him?
You hoped that by admitting to being an accomplice in Dr. Mr. Drebber's scheme, the trial would end, before you were accused of a far worse crime. Cold-blooded murder! Oh, now she's freaking out.
Oh, you shut up. You're so desperate now you're making all this up. As if I would do something like that.
Oh, but I have a motive as well.
I assure you the defense is not desperate, Doctor. Mr. Naruhodo has established the facts using evidence and logic alone. Ha! Logic? Don't make me laugh. Sadly, your logic has a gaping hole in it.
Oh, do tell. What do you mean?
I have thought it was obvious. A motive, boy. You're lacking a motive. What possible reason would I have to kill Mr. Assman?
Harassment was involved in any number of criminal activities, from coercion to theft to murder, but there is no known connection to Dr. Scythe there.
Really? Did you just forget what we learned earlier? I'm rather relieved to say it does seem somewhat far-fetched. True, there's no obvious motive, but there's still something in the back of my mind. I feel sure I've seen something somewhere that hints at why the coroner might have done this.
Yes, I might have tampered with the crime scene and concocted a fake report, but murdering someone for no reason is a very different story.
No! When you question what possible reason you could have for wanting to kill Mr. Assman, something did come to mind.
What?
What was it, counsel? Enlighten the court at once.
Yes, we saw it yesterday, didn't we? Something that seemed strange, but we had no reason to suspect it at the time. There's a particular object that explains why Dr. Scythe would have wanted to kill Mr. Assman, and it is the scalpels! Just like I said it would be. It's a scalpel, or rather, scalpels.
Did you say scalpels?
It would appear that word has struck a chord, Doctor.
You, come on, out with it. It was yesterday when we visited your laboratory. Yeah, I remember. The 500 scalpels or whatever it was. Or however, I don't know. Was it 500 or was it? I think it had something to do with the number 5. Let me check the chat log to see if I'm just going into. Yeah, okay. If it was 500 every month. Okay, well then, yeah, that's even worse. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. At first, I wondered what on earth you could be using that many scalpels for. But actually, I realize now that it's not the scalpels themselves that are significant, it's the money for them. Disappearing every month from the department's accounts.
Assman's criminal organization relied heavily on extortion for its funding. Tracing the money from the forensic investigation team's account to find out where it was going would be extremely straightforward.
10 years ago, when Mr. Assman was still a journalist and wrote the article about Mr. Drebber, he may well have stumbled upon information as he was researching the story. Information relating to Dr. Scythe's darkest secret that he would use to rack money for her from her for the next decade.
Her darkest secret? Good lord, you mean?
I don't know what happened on the night of that execution 10 years ago, but clearly the opportunity to rid yourself of that menace was too tempting to pass up. You're going down, we got you now. No, I'll have to run. So in the end, you weren't coerced at all, were you? You did it entirely of your own free will. You stabbed Mr. Assman in the heart with all your might. To silence a blackmailer who knew your dark secret forever! Breakdown.
You'll never understand, none of you. What we've had to keep covered up all these long years.
Not quite the breakdown I was expecting, but still, we got the confession! Why is Kazuma here? What are you doing here? Why were you brought to this trial? You clearly weren't brought here for no reason, but you've served approximately diddly-do purpose this whole time. What are you here for? As very little of this machine remains after it was ripped apart by the bomb, the truth of this case can never be properly established unless you speak out.
And if you decide not to, it's very possible that Courtney Scythe will escape punishment for her crimes. Please, sir, own up to what you've done, and tell the court the truth about what happened.
10 years ago, you told the truth, and you were robbed of a bright and successful future as a result. I can certainly understand your bitterness, and your consternation now, however. This is surely the chance you've been waiting for, to sever the hold that fate's had over you all these years.
Super high voltage instantaneous kinesis? I mean, really.
Go on.
It's the addle-brained mock scientists that are the worst, you know. They don't recognize the fact that they don't have talent. They can't even get that right. And so they end up chasing impossible dreams, having unbridled faith in their abilities. They go on and on about their wonderful hypotheses, their stupid eyes shining like a little child's. They make me sick. I can't abide their foolishness.
Careful, Mr. Drebber.
I was particularly pleased with the kinesis machine. It made for quite a show, didn't it?
If that's what you want to call it. So you admit it? You admit that it was nothing more than a sham made for the purpose of killing the victim?
Yes, I admit it. I did it all in the name of revenge.
Revenge for the future that Mr. Assman's article had deprived you of 10 years earlier. But the revenge you sought didn't stop at Assman, did it?
which is where that very particular waxwork comes in. Yes, I see.
The condemned convict that you saw rising from the grave in Lowgate Cemetery 10 years ago, if your account of all those events was true...
Then obviously Scotland Yard couldn't afford to acknowledge what had happened. Even if it meant discrediting a bright young man and crushing any future career he might have had.
So your plan required that you abduct that particular waxwork model in order to exact your revenge on Scotland Yard as well, or on Dr. Scythe to be precise. It was a year ago. By some extraordinary twist of fate, Asman turned up at my workshop. He didn't remember who I was, of course. He just wanted to employ my services as an engineer. And he happened to have a paper with him. An article on the front page caught my eye about the coroner who'd handled that bogus autopsy report being appointed head of a new forensic team. When I learned that news, my cognitive processes started to devise the plan. What a horrid tale. He robbed me of my future, so I wanted to use the man's own wiles against him for revenge, and have that rotten Scotland Yard eating out of my hand at the same time. I wanted them all to suffer the same humiliation that I had to suffer. Damn, I mean, this case is just like... This shouldn't be case 3. This doesn't deserve to be stuck in case 3. Your actions against those who ruined your future were justified as revenge, at least yourself. Certainly, no one has the right to destroy another's prospects, especially for purely selfish gain. And yet, in carrying out your plan, you did exactly that to someone else, didn't you? Did I? Professor Harebrain's only crime was passing for his hypothesis, but you had no compunction about sacrificing his future to effect your revenge. You knew that he would be forever branded a failure and a fraud. Perhaps life treated you unfairly 10 years ago, and others' misconduct left your life in tatters. But remember this. Your own actions resulted in exactly the same thing for another perfectly innocent young man. Jesus. Like, see what I mean? This is intense, heavy stuff. Like, how is this only case 3? I don't understand.
Lord Van Zeeks, what of Dr. Scythe? An immediate warrant for her arrest has been granted and she's been remanded in custody, my lord. I presume she will face trial in the coming days, along with Mr. Drebber.
A most regrettable illustration indeed. She's made great contributions to her profession over the years. It really is a hard truth to swallow. However, that is a topic for some future occasion. For now, Professor Harebrain.
Oh, yes?
It seems there was a great deal more to your experiment than you realized. However, I think we can assume now that all the sordid details have been brought to light. This has been a very long and profound trial, but I am pleased to say you are absolved of all guilt.
Finally.
The whole experience has taught me a very great but painful lesson. This dedicated scientist, this devotee of financial philosophy,
Get on with it already.
I've been selfish and self-centered and above all a fool.
Professor...
I've spent my life thinking of nothing but my research. Misguidedly believing that I could do whatever I set my mind to despite my lack of talent. And the worst of it is, in the process I've caused others pain and misery.
Of the people that were involved in this case we've just heard from, you are the least of the offenders. Trust me.
Others who are far, far greater people than I.
No, Professor, that's not true.
What?
Don't tar yourself with the same brush as Drebber. What happened was his doing and his alone. This outcome is his fate, not yours. You're not to blame in any way.
Lord Van Zeeks.
And the derision with which he referred to you earlier, calling you a fool, talentless even. The man has no idea. To believe in yourself and work your fingers to the bone to realize your dreams, that's laudable, not laughable. No one has the right to deride another for such choices.
Damn, Van Zeeks is just pulling out all the surprise cards. He's got like a whole pocket full of surprise cards in his back pocket. He's just like, here you go. You thought I was this way? Well, it turns out, psych, I'm this other way. Jeez.
Thank you, Barrack.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I honestly forgot they were even a thing. Forgot they were even here. It is this court's expectation that you find the defendant not guilty of the charge of which he stands accused. I presume there are no objections.
None for me, my lord.
Certainly not.
This trial has really made me think, but this is the right decision. It's all been proven methodically and rigorously. I have no misgivings whatsoever.
What's that? It's done, is it? It's not over? I don't know what's comedy on these days. I don't recognize the place. Old man yelling at a cloud.
Very well. In that case, I hereby pronounce the defendant
Not guilty. Holy hell, that case. Oh my god, that was incredible. That was freaking fantastic. That does not deserve to be a case 3. That, well, okay, I'll talk about. I'll say my thoughts for the end.
Court is adjourned.
Jesus, man. It's over. That was some trial. Oh, you don't say, buddy. Okay. October 24th, 4:33 p.m., the Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Professor, what a splendid outcome, isn't it?
Oh, it is it? It is. Congratulations, Professor Harebrain.
I apologize for the background noise outside. I don't think this. I'm hoping that's not going to come through, but, you know, it's noise outside.
Mr. Naruhodo, Mr. Sato, I am truly beside myself with gratitude. How can I ever thank you enough?
I'm just glad it's all been cleared up.
Right now, if I had the research, I'd give it the whole lot to you, every penny.
Well, that's very kind, but I'm just a student, so we don't need any financial reward. Susato, I'm not sure you understand how the process of lawyer-client relationships work. That the lawyer does the thing, and then they get paid for doing the thing. Especially unraveling the insane Jenga tower that we just did. I think we deserve some compensation of some kind. Especially since Airlock Sholmes is prattling on about how,
Oh, Iris will go hungry tonight if I don't do this at the Locksmith Museum.
it's like, obviously you don't give me the entire grant, but like, we didn't, this isn't a pro bono case. Like, hold on.
Oh dear, oh, what can I do?
How about this? What is that? What the hell? Is that a trading card? Well, this is a memento then, thank you.
I've been wondering, Professor, what are you going to do now?
Oh my, yes, what am I going to do? My hypothesis and my great machine lie in ruins. But still, it's been too long since I was last in London, so perhaps I'll enjoy some sightseeing. I must explore the Great Exhibition whilst I'm here too, and see if new inspiration hits me.
It still really annoys me that the Great Exhibition dates are so offset from when they actually happened, but oh, what now? Is it Van Zeeks? Yes, it is. Hello. How you doing? Lord Van Zeeks, what are you doing here? Okay, that is really obnoxious. I apologize for the background noise outside. I don't know what I wish I could do something about it, but I mean, this looks like we're both out of luck here. I'm hoping it's not going to be as loud in the finished video as it is right now.
Barrack!
I'm sorry you had to go through that, Albert.
Well, if I'm honest, it was terrifying. You were like a great demon behind your bench there, snarling down on your prey.
Why was Kazuma part of the trial? Is no one going to tell me that?
I couldn't leave it to anybody else to handle the prosecution or the defense.
Sorry? All the defense? Did I just hear that right?
I always knew that you had my best interest at heart, don't worry. How about you show me around while I'm here in town? It's been a long time since we left the university. We have a lot to catch up on.
Listen, Albert. In a few days, your acquittal will be made official. When that happens, you must head straight to Dover. I'll accompany you.
What?
From there, you'll cross the channel and make your way back to Germany. I've already purchased the tickets.
Why? So I mean, I can guess why. I have a thought as to why. It's a terrifying thought. But the only thing I can think of as to why you'd want him to get the hell out of here is if there's actually some truth to the Legend of the Reaper. That's the only thing I can think of as to why the hell you'd want to get him out of here.
What about the Great Exhibition? This is the chance of a lifetime for me.
No sightseeing, Albert. Give up on the idea.
Sometimes it's hard to see any warmth in those eyes, Barrack.
Lord Van Zeeks? What's all this about?
Unnecessary precaution.
Yes, I think I understand. You do?
Well, Iris told me that when you met Lord Van Zeeks at his office some days ago, he asked how Mr. Natsume was doing.
Yes, that's right. I remember being surprised at the time, thinking it was nice of him to ask.
The point is, Mr. Natsume is still alive and well, even though it's been more than 6 months now since he stood trial with the Reaper as the prosecutor.
You mean the Reaper's influence doesn't stretch overseas? Which, you're gonna have to, okay. You are going to have to pull some serious bullshit out of your ass in the next couple of cases in order to explain this Reaper bullshit, because I don't know what the hell's going on here, but it's a stretch at the moment. You're gonna need to pull some major bullshit out for me to buy this. Oh boy.
That's been the pattern up to now.
But of course, we know that both Mr. Natsume and Gina were completely innocent.
True. And perhaps that governs the Reaper's actions. The truly innocent are spared. But I don't want to take any chances with a close personal friend.
But Barrack!
Like the mustache Nipponese, this man should leave the country without delay. That's why I'm packing him off to Germany at once.
Right. Does your friend-shaped package get any say in it?
Goodness! Was this your intention all along then, Lord Van Zeeks?
I'm gonna go with the solid yes on that one. In Cord, where people think of him as the Reaper, this man seems absolutely merciless, and yet, sometimes, I feel as though I don't understand him at all. Yeah, he's a mystery wrapped in a riddle, alright.
It's time to go, Albert. Back to the prison for the time being.
Yes, alright. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, thank you so much for everything.
Not at all, Professor. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Was it, though? Best wishes, Professor Hairbrain.
Well, once the dust is settled, you must come and visit me in Germany.
We'll see about that one.
Anyway, goodbye for now.
Okay, then. I don't know what's going on with the Reaper here, but it's gonna be an uphill battle for you to explain this one to me.
Now, my Nipponese friend,
Oh, yes, I thought you'd gone too.
we have matters to discuss. Can you spare me some time?
You want to talk with me?
I'll be waiting in the courtroom in 10 minutes.
There's more? Well, that was strange. For some reason, I didn't get that sense of impeding doom as he walked away this time. Which is odd, because this is the first time that I've ever felt impeding doom when talking to Van Zeeks. The Enigma, Barak Van Zeeks. What does he want to discuss, I wonder? The answer awaits in the courtroom, I suppose. Here goes. Well, my best guess is either it has something to do with Kazuma, who has done diddly-do in this episode so far, or he wants to take off the mask and figure out who the professor's identity is. And honestly, I'm not sure which one would rattle me more. Oh, dear. Oh, dearie me.
So, are you satisfied? You saved a girlless scientist from a great injustice.
Yes, I think so. I'm relieved, at least, that the man's innocence could be proven.
Anyway, I imagine you've been wondering where my animosity towards you Nipponese comes from.
Yeah, I've been in the back of my mind for a little bit. Just a little bit, though. Well, at first I thought you just didn't like me. I imagine you saw me as a pretentious child from an unimportant land who had no business being here. But now, I think differently. I think you're much worse than that. I think you hate all Japanese people. You clearly know our ways. So I would guess that some specific incident led to your thorough dislike of my race. Will you tell me what happened, please?
The Professor. I thought I'd never hear that name in this courtroom again, to be honest.
He took your brother's life.
Clint. My brother was Clint Van Zeeks. 16 years ago, when I was still just in my teens, he was already the director of prosecutions and a key member of the judiciary. I looked up to him. He was everything I aspired to be. He was involved in the establishment of justice systems in foreign countries as well. There were exchange programs between Britain and other nations then too, to share knowledge and ideas. As part of one of those programs, 3 judicial students came to Britain from your homeland, the Empire of Japan.
Oh, if it was 16 years ago, then one of... Oh, no. No, no, no. No, you can't, no, you're not, no, no, no.
Of course. I remember Dr. Mikotama well. No. No.
Don't, I swear to God, don't even try to tell me.
I was a minor at the time, training at the prosecutor's office. One day, Clint introduced me to 3 visiting Nipponese.
So, you've actually met my father.
He and his colleagues were polite and amicable. They were adept at their work and exacting in their standards. It was my first encounter with the Nipponese spirit, and it made a very great impression upon me. But 6 years later, that's when it happened. The investigation was going nowhere. There were no suspects even, just an ever-growing list of victims. And in the end, my brother became one of them. The last, in fact, before the case was finally resolved.
I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zeeks, truly.
Clint was always ready to put his life on the line for justice anyway, so he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. He lost his life to the killer, but it was his victory in the end. For me personally, though, it was a great loss. I found myself in a very dark place indeed. I don't like where this is going. When I finally found out the killer's identity, the reason why no one had been able to catch the man sooner ceased to be such a mystery. He'd been hiding in plain sight all the time.
In plain sight?
Are you aware of political events 10 years ago? Absolutely not. It was a period of extremely sensitive diplomacy between the British and Japanese empires.
A new treaty was being forged, I think.
It's correct. The Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation was being concluded. The leaders of both countries were deep in extensive political discussions. Which is why this particular killer's appearance in court was conducted as a closed trial. If the British public had known the identity of the killer, not only would the treaty have been in jeopardy, but our 2 nations could very well have ended up at war.
What? A war? Between Britain and Japan? But that would mean... Oh my! You mean to say the professor was...
Oh
When the
no.
trial reached its conclusion earlier, I thought to myself,
I swear to God, no!
Time for you to come face to face with this hideous monster. I borrowed the key for the mask from the proprietress of the Waxwork Museum. So suit yourself. Confirm it with your own eyes. The truth that's been hidden this past decade.
I don't know that I want to see this.
That's the professor?
Yes, that's him.
Until now, the thought never even crossed my mind that the mass murderer, whose crimes shook Britain as never before, was Japanese.
Wait a minute. That I feel as though I've seen it somewhere. It's strangely familiar.
Hey, buddy! How you doing?
Father.
What?!
What? Father?
Oh, what?
Kazuma!
I mean, this is when we knew this already, but
My
what
best
the?
friend, Kazuma Asogi. After a whole year, finally his memories returned. As he stood there before me. Ryunosuke. Hello again. My friend.
Kazuma-sama!
Judicial Assistant Mikotoba. It's been a very long road. Thank you for guiding my friend here when I could not.
It was an honor.
I knew you wouldn't die that easily. Kazuma.
I owe you thanks, too, for taking good care of that in my absence.
Oh. Karuma, great blade of the Asogi clan, passed down through the generations. When we left Japan, this sword was at my friend's side. A Japanese man's katana is his soul, and he couldn't be parted from it. But then, when the incident happened, it was Susato-san's wish that I inherit the sword, and I've kept it with me ever since. Along. With this by my side, I always felt that you were watching over me somehow.
I've made it. At last. Father.
Are you saying... Surely not. You mean, you knew all this time? I'm looking at it. But I still can't believe it. This mass murderer is Kazuma's father.
Kazuma-sama.
Ryunosuke, we have much to talk about.
You don't say!
Not the time.
Wait a minute!
I'll be seeing you.
What the fuck?
That's all Kazuma said. Before he turned and left us there, in the courtroom.
Oh! What? What do you mean? He's the... Uh-huh! Where do I even begin? I have things to say. I did okay. I was just stunned to silence. I didn't want to say anything about that whole cutscene because I was just stunned to silence for most of it. It was the first of, I mean, that we knew that Kazuma was underneath the mask all the time. That was of no surprise to anybody. But he has his memory back. The people told me the budget was reduced for this game. After watching that cutscene, I never would have believed it. You could have convinced me otherwise, honestly. With the quality in those animations, like that, I felt like I was watching a movie at that point. We've never seen a cutscene of that caliber in these games before. What? His father? Oh my, okay. Was not this, again, not on the bingo card. Not even like a backup bingo card somewhere.
So he's the living afterimage of the man who took my brother's life, is he?
Yes, Kazuma Asogi, my best friend.
3 months ago when old Strongheart introduced us. I had an inkling there was something there. Some connection.
But why did Lord Strongheart do that? Why did he make Kazuma Lord Van Zeek's apprentice? And when he was suffering amnesia too?
The man was apprehended, even executed, but his legacy just won't die. That's the sad truth. Anyway, that's all I had to say. I thank you for meeting with me as I asked.
Uh... 10 years ago, my grandmother took me to the railway station. We were there to meet my father from the train. For me, it was the first time I'd ever seen him, because he's a dick. Poor Susato-san. All this is tied up with painful memories for her, too. She's never talked about this with me before, though. It took time for just having father around, but just when I was starting to get used to it, he called me into his study one day. He told me that a great friend of his had passed away in London, and that the friend had left behind a son. A boy, 7 years my senior. Father told me the boy had made a promise to his late father, so he was studying to become a defense lawyer. I wanted to help, so I studied to become a qualified judicial assistant. As I'm sure you've worked out, that young man's name was Kazuma Asogi. So you see, that's how he and I met.
For a brief moment, my great friend had returned, only to disappear again all too soon. But in that fleeting encounter, something stirred. Something that had been dormant for a long time, as if great wheels had been set in motion. I could almost hear them creaking into life. In some ways, it was the end of a chapter, but in many, it was the start of a new one.
Is that it? Is that the end? Holy mother of pearl! And I get that that's funny because there's a character called Pearl in this universe, but I was referring to when Crab says it in SpongeBob SquarePants. How is that case 3? How is that only case 3? That was like mega endgame. That was like, this is the end of the road. There's nothing left now. That was the super mega endgame. How is it only case 3? What? Oh my god. Okay, so first of all, that case is just, like, if you chop off the last 20 minutes of that case, you still have a phenomenal case. You still have an incredibly intelligent mystery to dissolve, really engaging motives, really cool answer to deduction, and cool place to examine, and really engaging witnesses to interact with. Just a really, really cleverly constructed and really well-paced mystery from start to finish, because it's so much better. It is so much better to have investigation, trial, break, investigation, trial, done, instead of investigation, trial. It's so much better when you pace it that way. I don't know why they did that for the last game, but it's better. I'm glad that it's back in order now. But, so obviously the case itself was just fantastic, and without a shadow of a doubt, the best third case in the entire series, because here's the thing. A lot of people say, oh, the third case syndrome, and all the cases 3 sucks, and I say, no, they don't. Turnabout Samurai is a great case. Or, sorry, Turnabout Samurai is a good case. Turnabout Big Top sucks. It's a big old wad of shit. But, you know, you got one. Recipe for Turnabout. People hate on it a lot, but I gotta say, I've spent a lot of time reading into that case, like, analyzing the script and seeing how all the pieces interlink. They put a lot more effort than people seem to think at first glance into actually making the switch between Phoenix and the Tiger believable, and having everyone else believe it as well. They put a lot more effort into that than I think a lot of people give it credit for. So, there's that. That's still a great case. Investigations, yes, the Kidnap Turnabout is, I don't know, I mean, case 3 and 5 are both crap. I mean, I think case 5 is still worse, but it's not saying a whole lot, but still. Investigations 2, case 3 is the weakest of the bunch, but again, in a game where they're all where they're all great or outstanding, not really saying much. Apollo Justice, Turnabout Serenade isn't even the worst in the game. I still stand by that Turnabout Succession is way worse than Turnabout Serenade, the point that it gets its own tier called actually offensive. Dual Destinies, Turnabout Academy, short of maybe Turnabout Reclaimed, is probably my favorite case in the game. Spirit of Justice, again, right at Turnabout's kind of, but my point here is that you might be able to say that third cases, by and large, are towards the weaker end, but I've never upheld the position that they're just universally crap. I've The only ones that I've outright hated have been Big Top, and I guess I've retroactively said that Kingdom Turnabout kind of sucks. I didn't hate it when I played, but Kingdom Turnabout kind of sucks. And then obviously Turnabout Serenade, but that's just because the whole game is shit, so it's whatever. But I would still maintain the belief that, yes, third cases typically aren't as good as the rest of the game, but that doesn't mean they're terrible. But this case is a whole other level. This is without a shadow of a doubt the best third case that I kept saying that throughout the video. This doesn't deserve to be a case 3. It doesn't deserve that. It's so much better than every other third case, and it's not even kind of close. This is easily going in the outstanding tier. When I post my formal rankings in the finale, this is going in the outstanding tier, and it is not even kind of close. But then, like, that's just the main case itself. Then you have the epilogue of the case, where you drop more hints about what's going on with the Reaver, which I don't even know what's going on there. We'll find that out soon enough. I don't know, maybe, who knows. Then you go into the courtroom, and you have that, first of all, again, production quality of the animations and the voice acting is just out of this world and through the roof in terms of how it compares to previous games. It's phenomenal. You guys told me the budget was reduced for this game, you could have convinced me otherwise, because that cutscene was fan-freaking-tastic, and just the character work, Kazuma, his moment of realization, the fact that it's Kazuma's father that was the professor who that took Baron von Zeke's life, just all of it, the reunion, everyone, the backstory with Susato and her father, and just, my god, it was fantastic. I honestly didn't know if they were going to be able to live up to that, because the other thing is that I still don't know, like, I mean, obviously we have a better understanding of why it was covered up because of how, like, intrinsically linked to the, like, obviously the risk of Japan and Britain going into outright war because, like, oh, someone of a higher echelon was the serial killer mass murderer. But, so there was that Pandora's box open, but I still think there might be more there, so I don't think we got all the answers yet, but what we did get, I was worried it wasn't going to be able to live up to my expectations, but they just blew me away. Holy hell. That is, like, because I was ecstatic in the first case when we got to play as Susato, as Ryutaro, quote unquote. Like, you heard it in my voice. I was ecstatic that we were finally gonna be able to get to play as her. But I have not had this visceral reaction to an Ace Attorney game since Investigations 2, which I get that it's not that long ago. It was only a year ago at this point. Less than a year ago, actually. But still, like, since then I've done the crossover and I did the whole of the first Great Ace Attorney game. I've not had that visceral, that emotional, that impactful. Like, I was just slunk back in my chair and my jaw dropped to the floor, just in disbelief of what I was watching, because it was so I couldn't wrap my head around what was going on. Honestly, now I'm worried that the rest of the game isn't going to be able to live up to that. I don't see how they can top it. I do not see how they can top it after that phenomenal case. How do you top that? They can't. There's no way. Now I'm actually really worried that they might drop the ball at the end. They might have a case 4 and 5. It's just like, yeah, we kind of blew our load in the middle of the game, so here's 2 crap cases. Please don't do that. Please give me good cases for the final 2. I really just, okay. I'm done ranting now. Point is, the case is phenomenal. I can't wait to see more. So that'll be it for now. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for next time. I hope to catch you all tomorrow for some more of the Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. Goodbye.